Come on again. Oh, g'day. This live thing, it puts pressure on me. It's good to see a few people up and about. Seen a few familiar faces and a few that, actually most of them are familiar faces. So welcome back everybody, and welcome to those that first time here. So already episode 6, Robbo's Tech Talk Tuesday. Today, or tonight, I'm going to talk a little bit about rifle scopes for hunting. So, as I let a few people get on, and hopefully, and I'll just quickly touch on this, a lot of people have mentioned to me that, they forget, or the reminders are set at the wrong days and whatever, or too far ahead, or too late. So YouTube are continually changing how they set things up. And years ago, if you were a subscriber, as soon as I put a new video up, you'd get an alert. But a lot of things now, you not only have to be a subscriber, or even if you aren't a subscriber, click on those links of the videos that I put up, or the notification of the video to come up as a live event, and just set that reminder, or click reminder, and you should get a alert when it fires up. So sometimes it's a little bit hard for me from an insider looking out to actually know what's actually happening. So the feedback I've been getting has been really good, guys. So while everyone sort of gets on, I'm just going to touch a little bit on some basics of setting up rifle scopes on a hunting rifle, and I'll go through a few of the things that I've discovered over the time that sort of helps you get the best out of a scope. And I'll touch on a few things: scopes, mounts, parallax, and so I'll kick it off, and then I'll go back and start looking back at some of the questions that you might have, if you have any, and I'll start answering them. So first of all, I just want to talk a little bit about scopes. So I just happen to have a spare one here. Now, when you're setting up a scope on your rifle, and probably more so now, scopes are sort of, most people go for a variable scope. In other words, a 3 to 9, a 4 to 12. And a lot of times now I'm seeing a lot of people going for a lot more magnification. There's 6 to 24s, in this case, 3.5 to 18. And I think what people need to realise with most scopes, and certain brands, it does vary a bit. Well, we probably all know what eye relief is. In other words, a distance that you need to have your eye from that ocular lens, basically, or the eyepiece, to get a perfect round circle. Now, why do we need a perfect round circle, or to get a clear image? It's a little bit about parallax, but it's about consistency. And just seeing the crosshairs and getting it lined up, it's not just about that, about as far as consistency. So one thing you will find on a lot of scopes is, especially on the variables, obviously what I'm about to talk to is basically only applies to a variable, is that the eye relief can change in length from low power to high power. In other words, you might be on low power and the eye relief might be 3 inches. You might be on high power and it might go to 3.5 inches. So what I've discovered is probably the best way to set your scope up on a rifle when you're putting it in the mounts is to think about how you're going to use that scope. And most cases, when we've got them wound back to the lower powers, we're most likely going to be standing and shooting in a normal upright position. So it's an important factor to get that eye relief set in that standing position. And when are we most likely going to have them in the higher range? It's most likely when we're going to be in the prone position. So what I tend to do when I'm setting up my scopes is I'll put a bipod on, whether I'm going to use it or not, and then I'll set it up on 3.5 power, or in this case 3.5, or your lowest power. Set it up in a position that I can move it on the mounts but it's just going to be enough to hold. So what I'll do is I'll throw it up, I'll close my eyes, I'll throw the rifle up to the shoulder, open my eyes in the standing position, And just when I open it, I want to make sure that I don't have to move my head forward or back, and I'm getting that as near to perfect, or hopefully perfect, round circle. Then what you want to do is actually go in the prone position, put it on the bipod, crank it up to maximum, and do the same thing. Sort of just bring it up, open your eye, and just see if you need to move that scope backward and forward. It pays to do this because it won't be the same between the powers. Some brands of scopes are worse than others. So moving on from that, Parallax. Now, for those that are not sure what Parallax is, I'm not going to go in depth in it, but basically what it means is getting your target or what you're looking at in focus and your crosshair both in focus at the same time. Now, fixed power scopes and scopes without parallax are usually set at around the 100 yards, but there are some scopes designed for rimfires. Now, Leopold used to do a rimfire series that was actually set for 75 yards, but most scopes, well, years ago, anything that used to be over 12 power would have a parallax adjustment. So it basically allows you to set that to a distance to bring your not only your target in focus, but to bring your crosshairs or your reticle in focus in the same plane. So why is this important? Consistency. And it comes back to that again. Having your getting up so you don't have any left to right or get a shadow in the left or right of your scope or up and down, basically tells you that you've got your scope aligned correctly on that rifle. Now I'll just bring up something here just to maybe explain it a little bit more. Basically, if you look there, you can see that I've got a little bit of shadow to the left. Obviously that's a perfect location, and this is to the right. What that will actually do, many might disagree, but what that will actually do will actually shift your point of impact ever so slightly. So is this important on a hunting rifle? Possibly not 100% as it would be on, say, a target rifle or target scope, but it's something to bear in mind. It's about consistency. If you think that you just get your scope lined up roughly and that's good enough, you're sort of selling yourself short a little bit. But definitely spend the time in getting your parallax or your scope mounted correctly so that you throw that up to your eye, you open your eye, close your eyes, open your eyes. If you're not getting that perfect round circle, either your scope mount's too high or the alignment is just out. So spend the time. It's well worth it. I'm going to quickly go through some of the questions, if there are any, and then I'll go on to the next step, which I'll talk about mounts and whatnot. Now, if I've missed anything, obviously I'll go back. So bear with me, guys. A few questions, I believe. How's it all going? I look forward as well. A few glasses of rum. I wish I had one. Only got the Pepsi Max tonight again. I can't talk, it jack me off. Good. Everyone's on. Put it on this. Okay, Shane Gibb. G'day, Steve. What's a good budget scope if you can't afford a top of the line one? I have 2 Bushnells, an Elite and a Trophy Extreme. A second-hand top of the line one. Yeah, look, I can't say it enough. Buy once, cry once. I know it can be difficult, but you're better off holding off and buying the better scopes. Simple as that. But if I was to sort of go down into the lower bracket sort of thing, look, you can't beat Leopold's warranty. Not that they're the lower end. They obviously have some top end stuff as well. But yeah, look, I'm afraid you get what you pay for. So yeah, I don't like recommending any of the bottom end stuff, to be honest with you. I've been burnt too many times. Hyro, what film camera setups are you using? We might have to make that another topic, mate. I use a variety of cameras, so Yeah, sorry, mate, but yeah, I can't get distracted. It's bad enough. Uh, Hi, Steve. Michael Wallace. Hey, Steve, I just got a new Myopta. Cost me over $1,000. Do you rate them? Myopta make great scopes. And again, they have different categories, different classes of them. And actually, one of the probably better scopes I've seen for spotlighting was, and I actually seen one come up on used guns the other day, was a Myopta 7x50 fixed. It's actually a very good scope, a good value scope, and it actually stacks right up against some of the best fixed power scopes I've seen. So yeah, the little Myopta 7x50 is probably one of the favourites, or one of the better ones that I've seen. But yeah, look, they're not bad. But what you've got to weigh up, if you spend $1,000 or whatever on it, was I better off spending that little bit extra and never changing it? I know it's an awkward situation sometimes, and obviously, you got to look at the finances side of it. But yeah, as I said, buy once, cry once. All right, what are we up to? Good evening, mate. Just enough reception to watch. Oh, it's good to hear, Reg. Josh D, do you like sandwiches? If so, what's your favourite? My corn smoked venison sliced thin with a little bit of pickle, actually a lot of pickle. Now, here we go. Also, if money wasn't an issue, what is your dream scope or scopes to have? Well, that all comes down to purpose. But look, yeah, like I said, probably my favourites, probably my all-time favourite, to be honest with you, the one that's never let me down has been the Carls. I still think they're, well, not probably one, I think they're the oldest scope manufacturer in the world, or one of them. They haven't been around for so long, for no reason. Okay. G'day, guys. Game King Mike, how or what do you use to clean a rifle scope glass? Yeah, I touched on a little bit this the other day, but it's quite simple. Look, you want to make sure that you get any dust off. If I probably can't find it now. Here it is. Hold on. My little puffer. If you're at home, basically, or wherever, you just get the dust off first, or a light. You can get those lens pens sort of thing. They've got a brush on one end. Get the dust off first, and then, as I've said before, just breathe on, like so. I don't know if you'll see that'll fog up, and then any of these, because I can never find one. Any of the cloths, the optic cloths, even buy them from, or you get them with glasses or whatever, they'll do the job. And if that really gets bad, obviously dust it off first, and then a little bit of spit, a little bit of saliva. No need for chemicals. I've never found any need, and it's a bit of a risky move to use any chemicals with the sort of the coatings on the optics. So, all right, what do we got here? Okay, Johnsy 300. Hey Robbo, what do you think of the Swaro ballistic turret, and what do you use yours on? I've had mine a few years, and not a drama on my Seiko. Yeah, great. It's a great sort of option, and geez, I'm trying to think of the Swaros I got. I think, I think they've all got them, to be honest with you. So yeah, I usually set them up at 200 yards zero, and then the three dots after that are usually the 300, 400, 500. And then with the ballistic turret, you've got to remember that you only get one rotation. It's basically a zero stop to wherever you set it, and then one rotation. But on my 7mm, off the top of my head, if I zero it at 200, I think I can get out. That's me Tika 7mm. I think I can get out to about 660 yards, which is well beyond most times what I'm going to shoot. So yeah, I do like them. Great idea. I have heard a few people have smashed them off and whatever, but you've got to take responsibility a little bit for your optics, and I think that's more of a user issue, to be honest with you. David McGuinness, g'day Steve. What's your preferred scope power for deer stalking in Victoria? to be honest with you, I think you want a scope that can. Most times we're all using variables now. I don't think there's many of us probably that still stick to a fixed power. Depends, obviously, the thicker the cover, the variable gives you the option of being able to dial back. I'd say I wouldn't want to have higher than about a 4 power minimum, and ideally somewhere around the 2 to say 3.5 and the lowest power. Yeah, that would be what I would be after, because look, target acquisition is the key thing. And basically, if you've got too big a zoom range or your scope wound up too much, by the time you find your target, it's probably gone. So, Tim Edwards, I'm looking at getting a deer stalking rifle. I'm looking at the Leopold VX5 HD 2 to 10 by 42, Zeiss Conquest, and the Steiner range 2.5 to 10. Okay, I can't talk too much firsthand about the Zeiss Conquest. What I've seen, they're okay for the couple of Conquests that I've seen, but they're not, as much as they've got the Zeiss name, they're nowhere near their top end sort of range. The Steiner, can't talk about them. I've never seen them firsthand. Actually, I tell a lie. I think Rob from Beyond the Divide had one when we filmed. I think he had it on his. Well, we'll soon find out in a couple of weeks. But I think he had it on the 204 he was using. The VX, the 5. Yeah, in theory, it should be a good scope. What I have found about Leopolds is their eye box alignment isn't probably as forgiving, as in if you're a little bit left to right or up, you tend to lose that perfect circle a lot quicker than you do with, say, yeah, in my experience, the Carls and the Swaros. They may have improved it, but yeah, and their eye relief that I've noticed too does vary quite extremely, especially on their higher powered scopes. From low setting to high setting. In other words, you might have up to sort of 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch difference. Different scopes, obviously that is affected differently. Like I usually find it on the high powered Leopolds. Used to be really critical of it. Again, they may have changed. So, Mike Hunt. Hey Robbo, must say the Leopold VXR would be the best budget scope in my opinion. Have the 2 to 7 by 33 myself, and it compares well to the expensive models. Shot many handy ones with it. Yeah, look, some of the Leopold, and look, you can't go past the Leopold warranty. It's extremely good. So, no, look, they're far from a bad scope, but possibly, yeah, when you start pushing, getting up there in price, sometimes I think, well, you might be better off looking just to save a little bit more and go from there. So, okay, Ben Davison, would you recommend first focal plane scopes for hunting? Straight up, no. Well, I shouldn't probably say it that way, but you find the reticle going down, changing in size, can be a little bit off-putting. Probably not so bad if it's an illuminated reticle. I've got the only first focal plane I use is the ATAC-R, and I have used it offhand before on its lower setting. But, oh yeah, it was a little bit weird, I must admit. So, yeah, possibly it wouldn't be my recommendation. But it comes down to power of that scope as well. Backy. Hi, what's your opinion about Vortex, Diamondback or Crossfire variable scopes for centerfire? Haven't used them, mate. I've heard some mixed reviews on them, so I really can't give you an honest report back on that one. But Vortex, again, have got a very good warranty. So, yeah, look, if it's within your budget and you can't push it a bit more, yeah, possibly worth a look. Goran G. Hey Steve, it's pretty hard to find a second-hand Swaro. Do you know of anyone wanting to get rid of one? No, I don't off the top of my head, mate. I have a Swaro, and due to budget, I'm thinking of Bushnell 2.5 to 15. Your thoughts? Yeah, I haven't looked through one, but I know a lot of the guys are actually using some of the Bushnell top-end stuff on their long-range stuff. And but I think they're starting to get up there in price as well. So, mate, no, I can't answer you. I'm sorry. What are your thoughts on the Swaro lens cleaning kit? Yeah, I think it's as good as any, to be honest with you. And look, the trouble with all these kits is, are you going to have them when you with you when you're out? So, like I said, I think I like to keep it simple. And like I said, a bit of breath or a bit of spit and a clean cloth and maybe just a brush. It'll get you out of trouble 9 out of 10 times. Jack. No, he knows his second name. Have you much to do with infrared or IR scopes? No, but I have started to consider it, and I am doing my homework on them at the moment. And one to look into after speaking to a few of the boys online and actually make a couple of phone calls. Want to keep your eye out for night vision scopes. There's these new PARD. PARD. They look like very good value for money. And yeah, thermals, infrared, oh mate, it's, to be honest with you, it really does your head in when you start looking at it. So no, I'm not right up on it at this moment. Andy, yes. Do you know much about the difference between a 24mm tube and a 30mm tube? Well, by 24mm, I think you're talking about an inch tube and a 30mm tube. You're usually straight up. There is a weight difference between them. Usually with a 30mm tube, you go into a heavier scope. There's a few reasons that have been sort of mentioned about it, and basically 30mm tube's supposed to let in more light, give you more movement with your turrets and whatever. But look, some inch tubes are just as good as some 30mm tubes as far as scopes. So it comes down to brands as well. There's probably a little bit more into it in there, but yeah, it's not just that an inch tube is not going to be as good as a 30mm tube. It comes down to the actual brand of scope, and not only the brand, the category of scope too. Ian R, what do you think of the ATN X sight 4K sight? I know a few people use them. I haven't personally used them. Like I've mentioned, I'm not into the night vision at this stage, but yeah, I think they're far from a bad scope. But one thing that was mentioned to me recently, and I might get corrected here, but I believe the ATN is only classed as water resistant or splash resistant, where the PARD, I think, has a higher IP rating. Is actually, I think it's maybe not waterproof, but it's just definitely more water resistant. Vic Wide Pest Control. How are you, mate? Jesus, this is what happens now. If I get a little bit behind, I'll lose where I'm up to. So here we go. Rick Fletcher. Hey, Robbo. Best solid rings to avoid lapping for a Hauer Rem 700. Lighter the better. Have tele one piece, but I don't have a lapping kit to utilise them properly. Okay, well, this might be a good little segue to talk a little bit about scope rings and my choices and my experience was with them over the years. So I might just bring up the little webcam here, and I'll talk sort of from worst to best. So look, I think we've all seen these sort of little fellas. These ones, probably had them all on your air rifles or whatever. They're probably one of the worst rings I've seen. Anything with these adjustments on the side, they're good in theory, but to be honest with you, yeah, it's not something I would use. Another sort of ring with a solid base, yeah, they're good, but these tend to flare up on an angle over a period of time. And if you're going to mount these, because they've got a clip over your scope, just make sure you put a little bit of sort of paper or something between it when you clip it on, otherwise you're going to scratch your scope. So not my best choice. Then you've got the older type scope rings that used to require a stud underneath. This one's actually off a bridge mount, so you used to have to put a stud up through the bottom and then you would tighten either side. And again, you could get any you could get windage play, and it wasn't my preferred option. Leopold, again, a little bit better. This is a front Leopold, so basically it goes into a base and gets put in and then rotated and locked in. I don't actually mind these, and on certain rifles, pretty good. Now, this is one of my preferred rings, and I'm not even going to try and assemble it here, but it's basically a Conotrol mount. I'm going to try and get that in focus here. These are one of my favourite, but very, very awkward to assemble. But once you've got them together, they are one of my favourites. Now, if you want ultra strength, absolute ultra strength, I don't even know if they're made anymore, but these are the Warn Maxima. A little bit different, as in they're split down the middle. You can remove the recoil lug or stud. Yeah, these are rock solid, and I used to use them on my long range stuff. This is a 30mm one. But yeah, for me, if I was to pick one scope manufacturer, I would probably go to the Conotrol. They're my favourites by far. I think they just look flash. They're rock solid. Bit hard to get. You got to order them direct, but yeah, they're a classy bit of gear. So yeah, otherwise Tally, I haven't got a spare set here, but Tally, I've used them now on the Tikka. Been very impressed. Weight to strength, alloy. I think they're pretty hard to beat. All right, now we've got to catch up, guys. Okay, and as far as Rick, as far as lapping, I've never needed to actually lap them. Won't hurt, but I think we can all get a little bit carried away with some of this sometimes. And to be honest with you, yeah, I think the key to it, and actually it's the key when you're fitting up your scope, is buy yourself one of these. It doesn't have to be this brand, but I'll bring this up again so you can just see this here. The Wheeler fat wrench. So it's basically a torque wrench, which takes the normal hex bits in the end. I see more scopes damaged from people over tightening or incorrect fitting of them than you would like to see. So check your specs on your scope mounts and use a good torque screwdriver and good bits, and you should never have a problem. If you want to put a little bit of Loctite on it, yeah, look, a little bit of the blue stuff is the maximum you should ever need. So yeah, it's not so much sometimes the scope rings, it's often how they're being put on is just a bigger issue. Ramsey Osmani, hi Steve, what are your thoughts on illuminated scopes for hunting? I think it comes down to the reticle on the illumination. I must admit, I've never been one for it, primarily because I've had it on the Night Force scopes and I've never really used it on there. But I must admit, this little 1-5 Carl's Healer that I've got on this combination gun, yeah, I must admit, I don't mind that red dot on that. It's good because you can basically have it down to 1 power, turn it on, and it's just like an aim point. Yeah, so it's sort of growing on me, but I think it comes down to the actual the reticle more than anything. So all right, a few of the boys are answering others here, which is great. Sean May, any use with Smitten Bender? I find them great, mate. They are a top class optic. Some of the reticles have probably haven't been sort of desirable for me, a lot of them, because they're based very much on the European sort of market. They're quite heavy, some of them, but some of their, I don't even know what they're classed, but they're 4A similar or something similar to that. Very nice, brilliant brand. I've never owned one personally. Ben did have an 8x56 Smitten Bender, but it was a cricket bat, or actually baseball bat size, so it was physically a little bit large for that rifle. But quality, optically, I don't think, I'd probably put them up there as one of, probably if not the best out there. A few boys clear. G'day, Paul Clee. Christian Hackle. Ever used a Bushnell trophy or banner? Did have a Bushnell banner many years ago, but that would be 30 years ago, and haven't really had them since. So I don't know what the new ones are like. And look, to be honest with you, most scopes today are pretty good. It's just what you get with the extra dollars. It's hard to put in words sometimes, but when you use them, it's very hard to go back. The big TG evening, mate, a little late. Oh, it's fine, mate. Better late than never. He uses a S&B Smith & Bender on my deer stalking rifles, but looking at a little more long range and not sure on scope powers. Currently using a 2.5 to 1040, but unsure on what power to use 400 max. Me personally, and this is just my thoughts, I personally think there's too much target shooting, scope choice being influenced on hunting rifles. And I see a lot of people buying what I would say they're basically over-scoping their rifles. For me, on a hunting rifle, something that's going to be used out to say maybe 400 to 500 yards, pushing it sort of thing. And to be honest with you, I don't see the need to go beyond sort of 12. As much as I've had them, and I have got them, I don't very often wind them up past sort of 10 power. And obviously it comes down to distance and size of target. But sometimes having a scope with too much power, one, it takes longer to acquire what your target is. Two, I find I tend to hold my shots too long because I tend to see my movement a lot more than I do on lower powered scopes. So it tends, in the back of your mind, you think, oh, I better hold. Sometimes you hold too long. And that's just my thoughts, each to their own. But yeah, and obviously then you start to go the higher power scopes, Parallax comes into it more. I think you just complicate something that doesn't need to be complex. Alan Bates, love the Leopold VX, the red fire dot in the last. Yeah, I've heard some good reports on them actually, those fire dot scopes. Richard Hadfield, scared to look through Swarovski or Carl's. Yeah, can be an issue. Aaron Kelly, hey mate, would you recommend using lens covers when stalking deer in Vic? Don't know about the covers, but it's probably one of the cheapest and the best options I find if you want to cover your scope is those neoprene covers. They're cheap, you can whip them off fast, and they do protect everything. I've had scope covers and that on before. Yeah, I'm not a massive fan, but if it works for you, I to be honest with you, I think the best protection is just a simple neoprene cover. Christian Hackle, ever used a Bushnell trophy or banner? Chris, I've just sort of answered that one a little bit. Jason Selms, g'day mate. Hi, from AHP episode 200 here. I know who you are, mate. How you going? What's your opinion on overscoping on hunting rifles? What's your go-to preferred magnification range for close, medium, and open terrain? I covered that a little bit, obviously, just a second ago, but it is a really good topic, and obviously, like I said, it comes down to target size, distance. But for a deer hunting rifle, out to sort of 500 yards, and even pushing a little bit more, to be honest with you, I don't think you need to really go over 12 power. And in all fairness, when I'm hunting deer, I'd probably have my scope, depending on terrain. If I'm in thick stuff, obviously I've got it wound right back. But if I start to get in more open country, I'd probably have it on about 6 power. And then if I've got the time, and this is what you got to remember, the times that you want to wind your scope up is usually when something's further away. So you've probably got the time to range it, you've probably got the time to crank your scope up, and you've probably got the time to be able to get set up on your bipod if you want to use that, or steady sticks. So, the time you've usually got is usually distance to your target related. So, to answer your question, mate, again, I think we tend to overscope, complicate our hunting rifles where we don't need to. Nick Ando, just a thought, maybe you could do a quick rundown of the scopes you've currently got and what rifle they're on and how go for purpose you use them. Oh, geez, you put me under pressure now to remember what scopes I've got on them. Yeah, I'll have a bit of a think about that. Maybe that's a different topic for another day. But I can tell you that that scope I just got there, that 3.5 to 18, was on my Tika, the 7mm, and it was two overs. Well, I won't say overscope. It's a great scope, but when the new Swaro came out, the Z5, don't quote me here, so the 2.4 to 12 by 50, that was by far for me the better choice, and that's what's now on that rifle. Yeah, okay. Peter Jones, hello Steve. Which is the best first or second focal plane? Each have their purpose. If you want to seriously get into longer range stuff, first focal plane. On a hunting rifle, second focal plane. That's my thoughts on it. Gordon Walsk. High-end brands, Zeiss, Carl, Swaro. How is the average punter supposed to know the difference in quality between entry-level and top-end? Most buy on name alone, not knowing if there is significant difference. Very good point. And I see so many guys will go into a gun shop, they'll hold the scope up and they'll have a Swaro and they'll have a Leopold or whatever, and they say, oh, I can't tell the difference. And I can't say I blame it, but put them on a rifle, and this is a hard part because you can't do that in a shop, obviously, but put them on a rifle and use them for a day, and the difference will become very apparent very quickly. So, yeah, awkward situation, but if you get the option of going to a range or whatever and get the chance and just say to someone, listen, do you mind if I have a look through that rifle scope on your rifle and just compare it to yours if you've got it there? That look, yeah, it can be a bit of a hard one to cover, to be honest with you. So, all right, Billy T. Again, I've skipped up too far here. Just bear with me until I see Billy T. Jesus, a few questions up here now. Got to catch up. This one might go for a bit longer tonight, boys. Glass cleaner from optometrist and microfiber cloth works great. Yes, but I don't. Whether it's necessary, yeah, I don't really think at this stage. I think you're better off with what you got on you. A bit of spit and dribble. Robin Coker, how are you, mate? Pard IR scope looks very impressive and compact compared to others. Check out YouTube videos. Yes. Now, Nathan, I've been speaking to him during the week, and I forget his YouTube channel. It's EDJMS or something like that. He can't make it easy for me. But he's a wealth of knowledge on these, and he's got, I think, the NVO8. And value for money, very well worth looking into. Michael Wallace. Hey, Steve. Sorry, guys, but have to go, kids. So good to chat. No worries, Michael. Blues Player 789. Great podcast with Jace the other day. How do you rate Leopold VX5, 6 HD and Euroscopes? Again, I've covered this a bit. Nothing wrong with Leopold. Great warranty. And, yeah, obviously, Niowa are very good to deal with from the little that I have dealt with them. Jared Birham, what are your thoughts on thermal rifle scopes? So far, I think you still need to spend good money to get something that's half decent. And my concern is if sort of paying for the bottom end, I think you're quickly going to realise I should have bought the top end. And it's big money. And my concern is go out and spend so much money and then within a year it's worth a fraction of that cost. So, yeah, I'm a little bit off sort of delving into it at this stage. Excuse me, guys, just drying out a little bit. Goran G. Mounting a scope to a 223, would you use alloy or steel rings? Depends on the rifle, Goran, so let me know which rifle and I'd probably recommend a scope mount. Mike Oxbig. G'day, Robbo. What scope would you recommend for hunting thick country? If you just want a good value hunting scope, probably one, and not worry about ballistic turrets or anything like that. The little Z3 Swarovski, the 3 to 10 by 42, is probably hands down one of the best value scopes out there, in my opinion. Mark Rankin, what do you think of Sig Sauer BDX setups? Sig Sauer are obviously reasonably new to the market, as in sort of getting their name out there for what I've seen. They've got some high-tech stuff. Haven't used them firsthand myself, and I do know they've got some stuff now that basically talks between the scope and the rangefinder. So, interesting stuff, but look, in this situation, for a hunting scenario, yeah, it may be... Again, I don't know that exact scope, but maybe sort of complicating something that doesn't need to be complicated. Stephen Lie Detector, shoot Pope. How are you, buddy? I use 8x56 Nikko Skirling Night Eater scope on my 3006 for the last 10 years. Well, mate, if it works for you and you're hitting everything you pointed at, that's all that matters really in the end. Andy, yes. Cheers. Are mill reticles easier to learn than MOI or vice versa? And is there a way to convert the two? As far as converting, there probably is. Whether it's simple, I doubt it. Mill reticles is probably... it's probably going to become more prevalent, and more people that are starting out will probably find that easier to work. I've used MOA for years and I sort of know it pretty well now, so I've got no inkling to change. Whether one is better than the other, probably not. Whether I'd say Milrad is probably easier to learn and easier to sort of calculate out downrange. So, yeah, it's pretty much for probably someone's just getting into it. I'd probably look at Milrad. If someone that knows MOA reasonably well, yeah, I'd still probably stick with MOA, and that's what I'm doing. Worn rings are still made. Good to hear. Thanks, Dale. Christo Cat. G'day, Robbo. Appreciate you sharing experience and opinions, mate. I have a 6 to 24 by 50 Bushnell Elite. It's a more tactical scope. Came with a rifle. Should I at least try it or go lower mag? Christos, you'll have to let me know what your application and what caliber is, what the rifle's going to be used for, for me to answer that. But if it's on a hunting rifle, a deer hunting rifle, it wouldn't be my first choice, that's for sure. The Win 338. Hi, Robbo. Been using a Leopold dual dovetail mounts for over 30 years. Never had an issue, even on a light 340 Weatherby. Cheers, Jamie Stevens. G'day, mate. Yeah, well, look. A lot of it comes down to, again, to setup, whether they've been Loctited on there, whether, you know, I think it comes down to brands too. Leopold do make good stuff, as in their mounts, and I do have them on a lot of my rifles. Christos Cat, deer hunting is what I intend to use it for. Yeah, definitely not the scope I'd have on there. Yeah, I'd probably go back to something what I mentioned before, like those little 3 to 10 by 42s, very light. I think they're only like 330 grams, or you hardly know you got them on the top, and not overly pricey, but they are the lighter end on the Swaro rifles. But again, you've got the backup. Michelle Huben. G'day, Robbo. I've been looking into buying one of the new Samsung scopes from their range. Any opinion? No, I've only just heard of these recently, mate, so I'm keen to find out. So if you do end up getting one, keep in touch, let me know. I'll have to do a little bit of homework on it, mate. What's Samsung, mate? Next minute we'll have our LG making scopes. Matt Bender. G'day, Robbo. I have a Ruger Hawkeye in 3006 and I have had an issue with the scope mount. Could you recommend a good mount? Ruger, yeah, mate, those worn Maximas, if they're still made, because Rugers aren't the lightest of rifles, so if you really wanted to go rock solid, some of those Maximas, if they're still made, I know Warner's still made, whether the Maximas are still made, they are rock solid. Tom Glover, spur one-piece mounts, either the hunting version or the ISMS for a bomb-proof mount. Yeah, I have heard very good reports on those. Never used them myself, Tom. The hunting truckie. I had those Leopold rings that you twist in. The front mount was fine, but the rear started to shear off. Ended up with a Picatinny rail. Yes, I have heard that. Because the rear mount, from memory, has got 2 grub screws that go in either way. Yeah, which can be a weak point in them, and it probably comes down to, not so much how well they're treated, but possibly whether they're locked up, because if they do get any movement at all, it's just going to sort of be amplified over time and sort of become a pain in the bum. Paul Ayres, what torque settings do you normally use? Some rings don't have settings on the packaging. Depends on the screws, but usually somewhere between 20 and 25, but always check or contact the manufacturer. They might not have it on the packaging, but usually if you get onto them, they'll let you know. But I have had some that haven't either. So usually, don't quote me here, but I think on the scope fixing on the top rings is usually about 20, 22, and often a bit, depending on the size of the screw actually on the mount to the rifle, will be probably higher, but again, it varies. Rick Fletcher, cheers. Have a fat wrench in the post as we speak, as I was doing up the top screws and Warmax was too tight and making a mess of it. Yeah, look, I can't put enough emphasis on buying one of those fat wrenches or similar. It definitely can save you a lot of heartache. Matthew Warren, just basically mentioning what I've just said. Josh D, duplex, milrad, dot or triangle as your preferred reticle. Again, it comes down, Josh, to application. Can't beat a standard duplex in my opinion. Served me well. A lot of people like the 4A. I sort of think if you've got a few scopes, try and keep them similar unless the scope is going to be for a purpose-built long-range rig or something like that. Mike Hunt. Took my Swarovski Z8i 3.5 to 28 overrated and replaced it with a Millet SP red dot on my spare 300 Win Mag. Never looked back. Highly recommend for when you know stalking and high. Yeah, that's a massive scope. Z8i 3.5 to 28. I don't even know anything about that scope, but yeah, I can't say it'd be something I would be using. Big TG, thanks, mate. No pleasure, Gaza. Michael Brady, g'day, buddy. When you fit up a new scope, do you torque up the screws to spec and lap the rings, etc., or do you throw it on and hand tighten? Never had to lap a set of rings so far, but I think it comes down to the rifles that are going on and the rings that I've used. And to be honest with you, yeah, you've got to be careful if you lap them too. Some people can get a bit carried away and you actually end up with a looser fit than required. But to be honest with you, if you've got the gear to do it and you know how to do it, by all means. But I've never really had a reason to do it. I just torque them up and be careful how I fit them. What's this? Hold on now. Mythical Exo, can you please say egg? Egg. There you go. Johnny Zhang, I've been running a Carl's KXI and the illuminated reticle really helps with low light conditions. I agree that the reticle makes a big difference in the appropriateness though. Yeah, I think so, in the illuminated scopes or non-illuminated. Yeah, Steve's just mentioning he uses Weaver rings on his Ruger 3006. Josh D, how do you use the parallax on scopes in the field? Do you leave it set or adjust it as needed? Good question, Josh, and it's sort of something that can frustrate you, especially if you're in thicker cover. If I was in thicker stuff, I'd sort of set the parallax somewhere around the 50 to 100 yards. Probably more like 50 to 75 yards, I should say, depending on how thick the bush is, and wind the scope power right down to minimum. Experiment a little bit depending on brand of scope. Yeah, but again, one of the reasons I'm not a big fan of parallax adjustments on scope for bush hunting. Dennis Menace, looking at Barras 3 to 9 by 50 from a 2 to 3. Look, it's going to do the job, mate. Whether it's what you keep long term, I'd say possibly not. Depends how much shooting you do, how keen you are to improve. Look, yeah, it's hard to buy a real bad scope, but there's obviously some out there. But to be honest with you, mate, if it's within your budget, I think it's going to do the job. It wouldn't be my choice, to be honest with you. Matthew Warren, slightly off topic. What's your zero on your 204? 200 yards. 200 yards because I've got the ballistic turret set the first stop. Stephen Porter, how's it going, mate? Good, thanks, mate. Love your channel. Thank you. Very informative and some great content. What are your thoughts on ballistic turrets on a hunting scope, like the Leopold CDS? The Leopold CDS, again, I haven't used that exact thing myself on a rifle of my own, but I like the idea, and people will probably correct me here, I think you can get custom turrets for it as well. I think if you've got it dialed in well, and that's the key point, it's only going to be as good as the time you put into getting it set up and testing it at distance. And then obviously when you start stretching it out, you get barometric sort of conditions changing. So yeah, I think if you keep your shots sort of 500 yards or less, I think and depending on caliber, I think, yeah, it's not a bad idea. Paul Ayres, thanks Dale J, good on you boys. Doog Smee, is using chemicals in the field something to take into consideration, e.g. glass cleaning? Yeah, I don't think it's necessary myself. Like I said, if your scope's got to that point, I've never not been able to clean it with just a bit of spit and or a bit of breath on there. So. Fox whistling. Evening, Robbo. Love your work. Thanks, mate. Thermal is a great tool and been using one for a while now, but does take some getting used to, but nothing hides from thermal. Hard to beat for chasing foxes after dark. Yeah, definitely. It's obviously a completely new direction. It's something that I'd actually like to see firsthand before I made up. I just don't want to go out and get one and then say, no, it's not what I wanted. And yeah, some of them can be quite a big outlay. And at the moment, I think I need to have a look through them at night, try them, and I'm sure I'll catch up with a few of the boys and possibly be in that situation, hopefully in the near future. Blimey, boy, it's almost an hour. I'm going to go a little bit longer tonight and try and answer all these questions. Goranji, yeah, I've seen you missed your topic there, mate. Lithgow LA 102, Walnut, Stock and Picatinny. I've almost forgotten what your question was. Right? Yeah, so if it's your scope mounts, if I remember correctly, don't count out the tally. The tally a good option. Yeah, mate, sorry, I've almost forgot what your question was. Contact me later on, mate, if I've missed out. But yeah, look, tally, very good, lightweight, strong mounts, so that's an option. Mohammed Omelette. G'day, Rob. I have to say the new Swarovski open sights are an absolute great optic for longer ranges. Okay, you need to elaborate a little bit there. But yeah, it sounds interesting. Blake Samuels, g'day mate. I have a Swaro Z3 4 to 12 by 50 with ballistic turrets on a Tikka 308. Any suggestions what I should set the turret stops at? Again, what's worked for me is I normally zero most of my rifles at 200 or close to that. Yeah, look, depends on your targets that you're going to be using it for. But look, 200's a pretty good start, and because you've obviously got the 300, 400, 500 sort of thing. So that's going to put you a fair way out there, and in most cases, well, sort of within the limits of the 308. So yeah, that would be my setup, mate. Hey, Walter, how are you, mate? Hi, Steve. Made the show tonight. Good to see you in there again, thanks. I'll send you some razor blades. I don't know what you mean by that, but thanks, Walter. Christo Cat, MOA and Milrad, you're talking another language. Brief description, please. I'm probably not the best one to explain this, but MOA is minute of angle. which is basically, if you look at a circle, we all know that there's 360 degrees in a circle. How do I explain this? Look, for every 1 degree, there is 60 minutes. So in other words, 1 MOA is 1/60th of a degree. I've probably stuffed this up, but anyway, it's an angle measurement, but it equates really to 1 MOA is approximately 1 inch in height at 100 yards, roughly 2 inches at 200, and so on. Milrad is basically the equivalent, but it's now I think 1 mil is 1 milrad is 10 millimeters, so at 100 meters. So it's basically, metric compared to sort of imperial, to want of a better wording. But like I said, I sort of always stuck with MOA, so I sort of know how to work that. Milrads, when you go with one, you don't tend to you tend to switch off to the other a little bit, which is probably a bad thing, but yeah, I like to be dialed in on one. So Dale J, you go MRAD versus MRAD. You can't convert one into another, but from memory, it's a strange multiplication. Yeah, look, that's the thing. You've either got to work with one or the other, I think. All right, Vic, jumped up again here. Hold on, guys. I've lost where I was. Geez, there's a few questions. Hold on, here we go. Dale J, metric works well with milrad, yes. Vic, wide pest control. Robbo, can you run through the terminology used in scopes and explain what it does for the uninitiated? Parallax. Okay. Quickly, parallax is basically alignment of your image. Look, for want of better terminology, when your crosshair is going to be in focus with your subject. Often you'll find like a scope with fixed parallax basically has the focus point and the reticle in focus at 100 yards. When you on higher powered scopes and you basically have to look further away, it becomes more critical, and what you might find is your target is in focus, but your crosshairs or your reticle is slightly out of focus, and that's why you will have a parallax adjustment. What it does is brings those two into line. You'll probably notice it more so when you've got the shorter ranges, when you're sort of under 100 yards, that you'll probably find, subject's in focus, but my target's in focus, but my crosshair's a little bit blurry. In a lot of hunting situations, not a big deal, but yeah, when you want precise scenarios, as in getting it dialed right in and target scenarios, it is a big deal. First and focal plane. Here we go. This could be a test. Basically, second focal plane basically means your reticle pretty much stays the same size as you're zooming in. In other words, when you're 4 power, it doesn't change dramatically. You'll zoom in, but the reticle stays pretty much the same. First focal plane, your reticle will change with the focal range of your scope. When you're zoomed in, the reticle's going to look bigger. When you're zoomed out, it's going to look tiny. But what it gives you, and the most reason for it, is you can use those holdover distance, whether they be in milrad, MOA, or whatever. You can use them at any power, as in 1 inch or 1 MOA is going to be 1 MOA no matter what. I probably haven't explained that last bit correctly, but it's sort of something you really need to read up on, because I'm not the best at explaining it, to be honest with you. Stuart Carter, I'm still running a VX1 Leopold on my primary stalker. Still does the job just fine. If you don't have a lot to spend, they're a great scope for the money. Yeah, VX1s are great. The only thing that probably lets them down a bit, if again I'll get corrected here, but VX1 from memory don't have clicks. They're just a friction adjustment, which can sort of be a little bit hit and miss. But once you've got them dialed in, yeah, they're good, definitely. Michael O'Sullivan, where do you recommend to buy quality glass? Local sports stores can be issues with warranties buying overseas. Yeah, obviously, if you're going to spend the money, I would probably buy it local. Swarro, for argument's sake, you've got to go through the recommended dealers. Depends what brand, mate. Otherwise, you want to buy overseas. One that I've dealt with over the years that's been really good is Euro Optic, EUROOPTIC, and there's another player in the game now called Optics Trade, and I actually bought the mount for that combination gun through them, and they were very good as well. They're in Europe somewhere. Okay, Clive 153, handheld thermal for locating game. LR bolt onto your regular scope for taking this shot. Has it pros and cons, or is it limited range? Again, mate, I haven't used them, so I'd probably jump onto some of the Facebook pages. The boys are a wealth of knowledge on those with sort of some of the thermal imaging and that. But the trouble is, it's going to be continually updated. So what might have been good, just if you're going to look it up, look at the dates when the stuff was posted, because if it's 12 months, 18 months old, what's available today is going to be completely different, most likely. Robin Coker, Matt Bender, I've worn Maxima on my 3006 Tika and worn Maxima, swap them out with Thermal Scott. Tough as, yeah, I can't say enough about the old worn Maximas, they're rock solid. Vic Hunt and Harvest, hi Robbo, love your work, thanks mate. +1 on the fat wrench. I use tally lightweights in most cases, 20 to 25 inch pounds on bases and 15 to 18 on rings. Haven't marked a scope yet. Thanks, mate. Matt Bender, thanks for the feedback. Yeah, good on you guys. Oh, well, we're up to the hour. I'm going to keep going while the questions are running. I probably haven't covered a lot of what I was going to talk about, but I think it's more important to try and answer your question, guys. Clive 153, one more thing. IR has a different wavelength than with an adjustable focus scope. I find the distance is different to the marked distances on the scope. Get a scope with close focus, it's better. Okay, thanks for the info, mate. Mohammed Omelette, hey Robbo, need an opinion. Would you recommend the Buzzbee Predator Blaster or the Nerf? Oh, I don't know. You might be a bit overgunned. Jared Nichols. G'day, Jared. Goran G. Alloy or steel? Depends on purpose, mate. If you want ultra beastie sort of things, yeah, probably steel. But to be honest with you, some of the alloy rings are pretty damn good nowadays. At Back Broadheads. G'day, Luke. Always good to see you on, buddy. Hey Steve, what scope would you recommend for a 375 Ruger down here? Got a Burris Fastfire 3 red dot now. Used it for pigs and dogs up north. Longer shots and scopes might be better. I've actually got one of the little Fastfire 3s as well. And yeah, definitely limited. And seeing that you're a Carl's fan, Luke, I would suggest seriously looking at what I've got on that combination gun. It's a Carl's Helia 5, which is a 1-5, but I think they've actually got a 1-6 now. Mate, I've been extremely impressed with that. It's basically like a red dot aim point on 1 power. Well, obviously the option in my case, wind up to a 5. If you look at the later one, you can go up to 6 power. And I think that would be just about spot on that rifle. Okay, geez. Yeah, thanks guys again for all the support you've given me along the way. Eric Zwiggelar, how's it going, Steve? Yeah, good mate. Thanks again too for some of your suggestions, and we probably will cover long range and ammo and that further down the track. Jack Blake, hey Steve, have you heard much about the Vixen scopes made in Japan, in particular illuminated 2.5 to 15 to 50? Heard of them? Know nothing of them, mate. So, Dale J. Yeah, Dale. Thanks, Dale. Good explanation. Read his explanation. He does a better job than me. Jared Nichols. I want to build a custom rifle using a Howard action in 17 Remington and use it only for fox shooting, varminting. Do you have any pointers for getting it done? It's a little bit off topic, mate. Yeah, look, probably contact me privately there, or we may have a little bit of a thing on longer range stuff. But to be honest with you, 17 Remington, fox shooting, varminting. You haven't mentioned spotlighting. If it was me, I would have whacked the old 8x56 Carls on it. It was one of my favourite scopes. But anyway, Ryan Tug, g'day, thanks, mate. Mike Hunt, Robbo. My mate dropped his bloody 308 with a Swarovski Z12 in the river on the weekend. Any advice for dealing with water damage done? Well, look, I think the first thing would be contact Hannes and that up at in Sydney, mate, and see what they suggest. Look, I'm sure they'll help you out. Look, we've got to be careful here, guys, too. Like, as much as we like to put things back onto our dealers or our suppliers, we've also got to take on the onus, and if we've damaged it ourselves, well, we have got to wear that. But I think most importantly, that we can get it fixed. Whether it ends up being worth fixing, cost, or whatever, but I'd still be straight on to the boys up at Swarrow. They're going to point you in the right direction, and I'm sure they'll help you out. Mike, just let me know how you go there. Anyway. Look, you can always stick it in a bag of dry rice, but it shouldn't. If it's got damaged with water in it, yeah, I think it needs to be checked out thoroughly. Lisa Estepe. Thoughts on Meopta Artemis 3000 3 to 9x42 scope as a brand and quality? I think they're a good scope. Yeah, they're probably not right up there with the other. I don't want to be a brand snob or whatever. And look, to be honest with you, I think you can do far worse than that scope. And depending on price, again, if you can pick up one second hand, even better. But it's definitely going to do the job. And look, the old 3 to 9 is hard to beat for just about most rifles, to be honest with you. Mike Oxbig, Robbo, must say the 12-volt Beagle works good. Also, have you ever hunted blindfolded? Worth a try if you're looking for a challenge. Thanks for that, Mike. Right, I'm going to go for another maybe 10 minutes, guys. We're pushing the limits here. Mark Rankin, totally off topic, but went to Morocco 30 to buy boots today. Rob spent over an hour with me to make sure I got the right size lower boots. This is why you deal with the local guys. Right? You got to remember Rob, Daz, and all those. These boys are mad keen hunters. They've been there, done that. If they're selling it, it's a very good chance that they've used it and they know whether they know the story behind it. And to be honest with you, I've only recently swapped over to lower boots, and I won't hesitate to buy another pair, I'll be honest with you. Stephen Porter, have you had much to do with the Meopta line of scopes? I have a 6 to 18 by 50 on a varmint 2 to 3, really nice under the red light. Now, like I said, good value for money. Me personally, I haven't had one. I've looked through a few. My brother had, I think it was a 3 to 12 by 50 years ago. It was a good scope. I think on that one, I didn't like the reticle. It was quite a heavy reticle, but just, yeah, it's a matter of finding the overall package that suits. So, Dukes me, either Air Arms Hunting SA or Ted's holdover. Do a good video on first, second plane. Yeah, thanks, mate. This is what we need to just pass around a little bit of information, because look, to be honest with you, I'm a jack of all trades. I'm a master of none, I can tell you. David Millard, thanks, mate. Dave Foxter, what are your thoughts on illuminated reticles for spotlighting? Never seen the need, but a lot of guys love them. But me personally, no, not a massive fan, to be honest with you. But again, it comes down to reticle and scope choice. Dennis Menace, Ruger American Predator, need new glass, budget 700 max. Yeah, I'll be looking for 700's pushing it a bit, buddy. Look, to be honest with you, probably either a good top of the range second-hand Leopold, or if you're lucky enough, probably, yeah, if you could get a 3 to 10 by 42 Z3 second hand, you may have to pay a little bit more than that, but very hard to beat. Josh T, off topic, what's the best way to support the channel? Thumbs up is always great, guys. But to be honest with you, for me, just seeing everyone here, the interaction between everyone, supporting everyone is the key. Yeah, look, like I said, I can't do everything perfect. I can't know everything, but what I can hopefully do is point people in the right direction. If I point people in the wrong direction, I've said something wrong, it won't be done on purpose, I can tell you. So if I don't know, I'll usually say. But yeah, just look, obviously sharing, yeah, all the social media things, whatever you can do, that would be great. And it really, hopefully, only benefits us all in the end. Ben Steer, I just missed the first part of the question. Just one question. Have a Tika 243. What that it came with is crap. What do you suggest? 243, again, comes down to your purpose. Probably 243 with the legs on it. Oh, it's hard to go past the, if you just want a hunting come longer range rifle, the scope, I should say. The Z3, the 4 to 12 by 50 with a ballistic turret is very, very good value scope. Oh, I can't. Thanks, mate. Thanks, guys. I'm desperate to get my hands on a safari sling. Any ideas where I can get one? Called almost, if not all major metro firearms shops. Christos, have you spoken to Daz down at Maroka 30? Might be worth giving him a call, mate. Just asking the question. Just mention you spoke to me and he'll say, not him again. Jeffrey French, thoughts on the Hawk brand scopes? No, nothing of them, mate. But yeah, obviously they're in sort of the bottom end range sort of thing. So I think you get what you pay for, to be honest with you. Dale J, Denson, thanks, mate, helping each other out. I'd go millet over Swaro any day. Just glass in a bit of plastic at the end of the day. Yeah, well, it's up to yourself there. Jack. Goran G. Hey, Steve. Since the questions have slowed down a bit, here's the complete question again. Okay, mate, let's give it a go. What rings would you put on a Lithgow 223 walnut stock 3 to 7 kilo gun, alloy or steel? Oh, mate, I'm not 100% familiar with the Lithgows, their mounting system, whether it's a dovetail or whether it's screw in the top. So I don't want to be vague here. But, yeah, mate, I'd have to do some research. I haven't had any first-hand knowledge with the Lithgows, so I can't even picture it off the top of my head. But like I said, hard to go wrong with the tallies for value for money, strength. But be honest with you, a good set of alloys, there's nothing wrong with them, as long as you torque them correctly. All right, guys, just go through these. Now, okay, thanks again, everyone. Picatinny, Goranji. Yeah, what rings would you put? Yeah, mate, I don't want to be vague here, but yeah, probably if you want ultra strength, the Warn Maximus, mate. Hard to beat. All right, guys. Now, just to touch on one thing, there's going to be no Tech Talk next week. It's going to be a fortnight from now. Again, I will put the video or the link to the video up probably a couple of days before it, but yeah, nothing next week. So I think we're all coming to an end. So thanks again to everyone for joining in. And I'm just quickly looking to make sure I haven't missed out anyone's questions here. Look, I've probably missed heaps, but again, thanks guys for dropping by. And until next time, we'll see you then.